you guys so you can send it out to people. So if you put this exact file name into your search into Google or Safari or Chrome or whatever, bit.ly LV Consultants for MT Vernon. But here's what's tricky about bit.ly, your capitalization has to be exact. So the LV and the C in Consultants and the M and the V in Mount Vernon need to be capital. So when you click on that or when you put it in, what you'll get to is this folder that has all of my, here are the articles I gave the principals, here's the folder from when I was here September 24th, here's today's February 2nd, here's the demonstration stuff at East on the 13th. I'm a big believer in like, everyone should see what I'm doing. Why we are paying me to share, not hoard stuff. So if you click on today, you'll see the chapter, the PowerPoint or the handout. Here's the deck. So the stuff is here, and if you're like, oh, what did she end up teaching at East? You'll be able to click on the demonstration lessons. Here's the plan, the packet that we're using for observation. So I'm not a hoarder. I'm a sharer by trade. So, well, don't ask my husband. He'll definitely go with it, fact that I'm a hoarder. But that's how you can get at today's PowerPoint. So there's hot links for the Twitter account or the Lucy video or other things as well. So LV Consultants at Mount Vernon, and then principals, if I can just ask you to get it out to your staff so that they don't, I see a lot of people taking pictures, but for anybody who's like, wait, was the LV capitalized or not? So I'm going to push us into the structure of writing workshop, which is in your handout now. So workshop structure is not something that Lucy Calkins and her team invented. It was actually invented by a college professor who was teaching journalism, a Pulitzer Prize winning writer, who realized that he would do these great 45-minute lectures on how to do a lead, and then he would ask his kids, his college students, go write leads, and they'd go to their dorm rooms or the library, and they would write leads, and they would come back to class, and they would be terrible. And he'd be like, I did a great lecture on this. How can your leads be so bad? So he decided, hey, I want to disrupt how I've been teaching, and instead I'm going to do a little bit of teaching, and then you're going to write during class, and I'm going to disrupt your bad habits that you're getting into. I'm going to pull a small group of writers who already know how to write a great lead, and I'm going to give them something else. So I'm going to show these guys who put too complex of verbs in their leads. I'm going to work with them on something else. So this structure of mini lesson, which is this explicit teaching time where you are the boss as the teacher, work time where writers write in community together and not for homework and not, as an assignment. So it's very distinct. I talk often about my kid had a freshman English teacher who was excellent at assigning writing but didn't do any teaching of writing last year. She just assigned writing things. So this is a very different model than just assigning. And then always wrapping up with a share. Let's look at the work we're doing. Let's create a community of writers where we give and get feedback from each other that makes our writing stronger. So you heard me make that explicit teaching point in your mini lesson today. So connection. Here's what we've been doing. Teaching. Today I'm going to teach you something new. Active engagement. Now you can try it, but you're not going to try it and become an expert on it. You got to try finding parts of Wilma Unlimited where there was good descriptive language, good details, good slowing down for about a minute and a half. So you're not getting to mastery in the mini lesson. You're just having a go at it. And then link. So now writers, I want you to do thus and such. Those are always the 4 parts of a mini lesson. Today we're doing blah, blah, blah. Watch me do blah, blah, blah. Try doing blah, blah, blah. Go off and do blah, blah, blah. Those are the 4 parts of a mini lesson. And it has that drum beat. So there's very little time where you put the text in front of the kids, and then a kid is like, grandma had leg braces. My auntie had leg braces. My uncle was in the Olympics. My uncle has a dog. My uncle lives on a farm. My auntie lives on a farm. All of that storytelling that happens there in Writer's Workshop, despite the fact that you want to build background knowledge and value story, you say, writers, so many stories to tell. Eyes on me during the mini lesson, and then your job will be to bring that out during work time when your pencil is in your hand. So you really are saying to writers during the mini lesson, eyes on me, because I'm going to teach you something that you're going to do the rest of your life as a writer. And so when I teach on Wednesday, you'll watch me it's a pretty bossy time. You bring the kids to the rug. You say, eyes on me, sit with your partner. You don't have to be here very long. That's why I'm going to expect you to be really great listeners. I'm going to teach you how to blah, blah, blah. Watch me do blah, blah, blah. Now you're going to try blah, blah, blah. Now go off and do blah, blah, blah. And it has that drum beat to it. There are a couple different ways to do the teaching. Sometimes it's looking at a mentor. Sometimes it's writing in front of the kids. Sometimes it's fake writing in front of the kids where you pretend like you're writing something, but really you're just sliding a piece of paper down to, you're like, let me try that. And you're just sliding it down and then revealing it, being like, oh yeah, you guys will figure out soon that I wrote this yesterday, you're right. But there's lots of ways that teaching might happen. Every mini lesson, Lucy gives you so much language that can come in this mini lesson. And your job, once you actually get into teaching some of the units, is to be like, I'm going to take a third of this. Because Lucy often starts her mini lessons like this. I was walking along the beach picking up sea glass, and it reminded me of the awesomeness of how every child is like a piece of sea glass. And you're just like, oh my gosh, get to the blah, blah, blah. Because she wants you to know exactly what she's thinking. And if you have, the lap of luxury of all your kids are at college and nobody needs laundry done, you might sit and be like, oh, tell me more, Lucy, and then what happened on the beach with the sea glass? And lots of us are just like, where's the bold print? Because that's where the most important part is, right? And that's where the most important part is. It's in the bold print when we go to look at the units. You always end that mini lesson with a link. So writers, now I want you to go back to what you were working on yesterday, or to pull out a clean piece of paper, or to think about everything you know and revise, or when you're in a unit, when you're in a series of lessons, you'll know half my kids are in the middle of something, these 4 kids need to restart, these 2 kids think they're done but they're really not. You'll use that language to guide, and you will send kids off to a work time. And during that work time, kids write. They do not line up so that you can help them. They do not sit like this. They don't chat that's in off-topic ways or off-task ways. So if your kids are really used to lining up so that you can help them with tricky words, you might have to interject a mini lesson that's like, writers, I've noticed many kids are stuck when they get to a long word. Today, I'm going to teach you how to sound out a word by yourself and never line up for my help again. Watch while I do it today. You might have to do that mini lesson. If you want to know where it is, I'll tell you exactly where it is in the units of study, because you do it about 6 times in kinder and about 3 more times in first grade. There's no lining up. There's no waiting at work time for a teacher to help you. So it really comes from this place of building independent writers, which feels like, my kids can't do that. But trust me, after the first 2 weeks, your kids are able to do it if you stand the ground. If you're like, I'm sorry, I can't, what could you do? Yeah, can you work on your own? Good. No, I can't help you right now. You'll share with your partner. Good job. But if you go over and you teach Sherry that anytime she's stuck, you'll help, then you're not going to get to that place of independence. So it's pretty scary. to watch yourself teaching and realize, like, they can't do anything on their own because I never let them. You know, so you have some of those aha moments as you let go and let them. During that time, that work time, you conference with individual writers, you pull small groups, you sometimes stand and look and see who's on task and who's not on task. So you don't do what I did today. Today, I wrote a piece about my son, you know, or about my bad parenting of my son. I actually wrote a piece of the opposite of being unlimited. I was being very limiting in my writing today. You don't, it's not like the old school, like, oh, during reading time you read to show the kids what reading looks like. You're like exhausted at the end of workshop because you've met with 8 writers that day. You know, 5 kids individually and then a group of 3, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 18 minutes. Okay, let's come back together for share. Share time. No pulling them, you don't pull the popsicle stick. We did a super classic share. You don't have to share your whole piece every time. So everybody shares their first sentence. Everybody shares their middle. Everybody finds a piece of dialogue. You know, so you work at the beginning for kids to get used to being like, wait, I'm sharing this again with you? When am I turning it in so it can go on the bulletin board? Right? So this disrupts that a little bit too. So the structure is mini lesson, work time, share time. And when we go into the curriculum, that's exactly how every single unit is set up. Here are 22 mini lessons. Here's 22 suggestions of conferences and small groups. And here's 22 shares. Mini lesson, work time, share time. Mini lesson, work time, share time. You can run a prayer group like that. You can run an art class like that. You can run a gym class that way. Athletes, today we're going to talk about what it means to get your heart rate up. And we're going to start by measuring our resting heart rate. Then every 5 minutes during work time, I'm going to stop. We're going to get silent. We're going to do the timer. Our rotations are going to be all high impact activities, right? We've talked about what that means. Watch me while I show you what our 3 centers are today. Jump rope. Thing where you jump up, get up and down off the thing. Whatever that exercise thing. And jumping jacks. Okay, you see the chart. Okay, it's time. We're coming out of our mini lesson. We know what our 3 activities are. Now let's work. You run the rotations, you take their MVP, you take their heart rate, you talk about the difference between resting and getting moderate to vigorous physical activity in. You come back together for share time. What did you notice? Did anyone's heart rate stay stable the whole time? Yeah, I hate you in-shape kids. Did anyone's heart rate get higher and higher the whole time? Yeah, why is that? How does our heart work? Great sharing. Line up. We'll get some water on the way out. Like, you can run a gym class using workshop structure. It's a structure for teaching anything. I'm going to show you how to do it. Now try doing it. Let's come back and talk about how it went at the end. High fives. So this structure of workshop works for reading workshop, works for gym class, works for writing workshop. So we're leaning into it. So let me stop and see. Questions, pushes, wonderings about the structure of workshop. Everyone's strombolied out. I'm going up to the top of that piece of paper. A couple things that I mentioned that I want to put out again. Writing is often oriented around a mentor text. You see the little books or the mentor textbooks that you get the mentor text books, not textbooks. You see the mentor text that you get with the curriculum. You are usually saying, let's do just what Jackie Woodson does. Let's learn about what this author of information. So I was, tell me your name again. Gina? Janet. Janet was I'm leaning in, and I had the chance to have a conversation with her. She was talking about how her kids aren't, they're not writing good reader response, they're not doing good literary response. So I said to her, well, have you read a lot of essays to your kids? Do they know what a good essay looks like? And she's like, yeah, we have one. And to put our business out there, and I was like, yeah, one example is rarely enough of an example. So when you're studying personal narratives, you'll have a whole basket of personal narratives that kids can lean into, and then you'll teach using one or two of them regularly. When you're doing informational text or how-to writing, who's kindergarten teachers? Kinder. The second unit in your kit, the how-to unit, is just amazing. Amazing. So you'll use how-to books to show, let's look at how this soccer book is organized and what are we experts at that we could teach someone else how to do. And guess what? 5-year-olds are expert at lots of things. So that how-to unit uses an anchor text, a mentor text to help center as an example, and then pushes kids off to be like, you can write a how-to book too. You're an expert on something. How to do a flip, how to tease your brother, how to set the table, how to cheer. Is cheering big here? Those bows, yeah. Oh, I'm not a fan of cheer, but that's a different workshop. Okay, so I faked my way through an anchor chart. But when you teach this curriculum, you'll have anchor charts up that sort of are like reminders about narratives. Things that good writers do to draw their readers in. Punctuation that matters so other people can read. So Lucy will give you examples of those anchor charts, and I think you guys purchased the curriculum. It has these, excuse my French, I think this is my second or maybe third swear, but these are not 3M brand Post-its, so when you find the cutest Post-it notes ever in the dollar area of Target and you buy them, and then they're horrible because they're not 3M, so you go to peel one and you're like, oh, I'm totally using these for class compliments, and then they're horrible. Well, these are a little bit horrible, which bums me out. So if you're going to peel them and use them, so this goes on an anchor chart, you have to peel it really slow and careful, because if you do it too fast, it rips. But every single one of these is in a PDF file in the online resource. You can also print them out on 8.5 by 11 paper, which is, smarter. So sorry, 3M. I know they're so expensive, and I never buy the special speech bubble Post-it notes from Post-it Company, but those are the only ones you should buy because the other ones are too cheap and never work. So anchor charts are a part of what shows up in your classroom so that you can make visible the expectations. They live on the walls of your room. So kids are never like, I don't know what it's in a good literary essay. There's a chart up that says these are the 5 parts of a great literary essay. Today we're going to add a 6th thing that makes a literary essay great. So those charts grow over time. Last but not least, materials. You can't teach this curriculum without paper and pencils. And I visit schools where people are like, well, yeah, they didn't bring a pencil, so they have to write with a crayon today. And I'm like, the spirit of this instruction is there's a can that says sharpen pencils, and every day you put 50 sharpened pencils in it, or you only have to put 25 of their Ticonderoga because they never break because they're so awesome. And that kids have pencils and access to a stapler to add a 5th page and a 6th page to their book. And folders with green dot, I'm working on it, red dot, I'm done with it. So there's insights about materials. So when you implement this teaching fully, you'll need 5 staplers. So I'm just naming that. You need pencils. When you teach the how-to writing unit in kinder and first, there's this awesome how-to paper because you number those pages because they're the steps for doing something. So they really celebrate and make obvious how to number the pages, okay? So that's the structure of workshop. Mini lesson, work time, share time. And in addition to that, there's mentor texts and anchor charts and pencils that help us get the writing done. So how has the team at Teachers College organized this for us? Grab any of the spiral-bound books, any unit. So if you don't have one, grab one from across the table. So just grab any of the spiral-bound books, right? Any of the spiral-bound ones. Yep, okay. So, the spiral-bound books are the actual units. Open it up to the inside front cover. That is always the overview of the unit. The left-hand side lists all of the sessions and the names of the mini lessons. The middle two columns list all the ideas for conferencing in small group, and the last column summarizes what the share is. So collections of lessons make a unit. Teachers College also puts those sets of lessons into bends. So I happen to have the 3rd grade crafting true stories. So bend 1 in this unit is writing personal narrative with independence. So every time I bring the kids to the rug for a mini lesson, I can say writers. We've been learning how to write personal narratives on our own, really becoming more independent in our writing. Today, watch while I teach you blah, blah, blah. And I'll do that for 6 days. Then I get to the next bend, become a storyteller on the page. Writers, we are now working hard to find our storyteller voice. Today, watch as I teach you blah, blah, blah. And I teach 7 lessons on that. Then I go to the next bend. I'm on bend 3, writing with new independence on a second piece. Writers, we've already written a piece, and now we're working on our second personal narrative, really bringing our voice to the page. Watch while I teach you how to blah, blah, blah. So those bends, those lessons, each of which have that gray bar, that's how the curriculum is organized. And after each bend, your kids should be getting better at something. What something are they getting better at? The title of the bend. That's what you've been focusing on. So that's how you sort of know how things are organized. Go into the curriculum and find in the Roman numeral pages, which I'm always horrible at Roman numerals, so I can't even tell you, where it says, welcome to the unit. Every single unit begins with a letter from the team that wrote this curriculum saying, here's what these 24 or 21 days of teaching are all about. Here's what we were thinking. Here's the overview of Bend 1. Here's the overview of Bend 2. Here's the overview of Bend 3. Here's the on-demand prompt you should give before you start teaching. Here's what assessment looks like at the end. Oh, and by the way, here are some things you should know. We use Kate DiCamillo for this unit, but 2 other great authors are Roald Dahl and Jerry Spinelli. You should have a whole basket of weather books to teach this unit. This unit culminates in an animal study in Bend 3. If you can't do animals, we have 2 other book lists about weather and thieves on the website that you can check. You can't teach this curriculum without reading the Welcome to the Unit. You have to read this. It gives you the roadmap for the teaching of that unit. And then just find the beginning of the first session. So find session 1. It will start with the wonderful letter from Lucy. Listen to mine. 3 decades ago, when the field of teaching writing was new, I began my now classic book, The Art of Teaching Writing, with words that are truer now than ever. So like I said, there's this she wants you to know why she wrote it this way, right? So she's very sort of let me tell you the story of how we got here. But then I want everybody to grab their highlighter. So I want you to turn the page, and I want you to find in session 1 the connection, the teaching, the active engagement, and the link. I'm 4 parts of the mini lesson, right? Connection, teaching, active engagement, and the link. So did everyone find those 4 parts? Anybody need help? That is always there for you, with very few exceptions. So every single connection, go to right before the teaching, and what is always in bold right at the very end of your connection? Name the teaching point. You always end the connection by naming the teaching point. That's the most important thing. So I'm going to read mine. Writers, today I want to teach you that writers too make New Year's resolutions. They think about and imagine the kind of writing they want to make, and they set goals for themselves to write in the ways they imagine. And they work hard to reach their goals. There's always a super blunt teaching point. Writers, today I'm going to teach you how to write goals. Writers, today I'm going to teach you that we are doing a new kind of writing called how-to writing. Writers, today I'm going to teach you the 3 parts of a narrative. So the teaching point is always there for you. And you never skip that. Then Lucy will give you advice on how to teach something, and then she will give you the on how to involve the kids in it, and then she'll give you a link to send them off to go to work. Lucy will give you way more than you could ever use. So your job is to be okay, I have a group of very talkative, engaged writers this year. Here's the parts of this I'm going to do. You're always going to do those 4 parts: connect, teach, active engagement, link. But you're these are really, really low writers. I can't turn my back and pretend right in front of them. So I'm going to have the whole thing written out on a piece of chart paper at the rug with me, and not only that, I'm going to highlight the parts that are important for my teaching, and I have it right ready. And they have to sit with their partners on the rug, because they cannot be off on their own. They can't move and find their partners. So I'm going to be really specific about what the teaching looks like. I'm not going to tell them the story of I took my own kids to see Star Wars, and it made me realize that just like Luke, we all have mentors. No, that's too much on a tangent. I'm glad that Lucy did that, but I'm not doing anything with Star Wars in my mini lesson. I'm saying writers have mentors, and we are going to have mentors. Today it's going to be Kevin Hankus. So I'm not talking about Yoda. Because sometimes she does talk about Yoda. And it's just meant to hook kids. But, I know if I start talking about Yoda, we'll have a Star Wars lesson. Every single kit has 4 units in it. And those 4 units are in narrative, opinion, and information writing. So over the course of 7 years, the kids write across all these genres. You heard Lucy say in the video, this, when done well, is a systemic approach to teaching writing. Because the most powerful piece of this is that when you go to assess the student writing, no matter if you're teaching kinder or 4th or 8th, you use the same language. You start talking about elaboration when they're 5, and you continue to talk about elaboration till they're 14. So do me a favor, and in this handout, pop ahead a couple pages to page 8, and you'll see the criteria that lives and breathes across all of the units. What's the structure of your writing? What's the development of your writing? What are the conventions of your writing? So if I just have kinder to first copied here, but this pathway grows all the way to 8th grade. So you don't sometimes say to kids, make your idea big, and a different year say to kids, put more lettuce on your essay, and a different year say to kids, I need your story to have more bubbles, and then a different year say to kids, you need to elaborate, include more details. You always say, we're going to elaborate. Let's look at what other writers have done in order to elaborate well in a nonfiction piece. So it brings that continuity, and all of a sudden, 4th grade can be assured that in 3rd grade, kids wrote a small moment story, a science piece, a fractured fairy tale, and a persuasive essay. And 4th graders can say, do you remember when you wrote your persuasive essays last year? We're making a big change this year. We are going to start using the word argument instead of opinion to tell other people what we're thinking, and we're going to start talking about strength of evidence, not just evidence. So you start to build that consistency over time that allows kids to be like, oh yeah, I know what evidence is, and now I'm going to learn about strength of evidence. And we're going to do that in 4th, because in 5th, Common Core holds them accountable for putting their evidence in strength of evidence order. Doesn't have to be in strength of evidence order, but they have to be clear about why they put their big reason first, and then kids need to say, and 2 other reasons that are important but not as important as reason 1, or they can say first, last, but most importantly. That's what kids have to be able to do. So the units of study give you a structure, kinder, all the way through 8th, it's available all the way through 8th, to talk with kids, to implement a writing time, and to build up a shared language, not just for kids, but for adults, which is the power of this on-demand work that you guys are doing. So when you ask kids to write this first on-demand piece, it's going to stink. Because they're going to be like, I'm going to pull my crafting, I'm going to pull one that even kicks your butt even more. I'm going to pull my nonfiction chapter book information text prompt out. This will just so we can all cry together. So if you wanted kids to do this, what you're supposed to say to kids is, think of a topic you're interested or that you know a lot about. Tomorrow, you'll have 45 minutes to write an informational text that teaches others the interesting and important information and ideas about your topic. If you want to bring in another source, you can bring it with you tomorrow. Keep in mind that you only have 45 minutes to complete this task, so you'll need to plan, draft, revise, and edit in one sitting. So kids are going to be like, can you say that again? Is that for a grade? But I'm going to rock the world of kindergarten teachers. You teach that how-to at the end of Ben 1. At the end of 6 days of teaching, your kids will know how to write a how-to book and how to tell you what they're experts on in writing. It's all this is the systemic approach to being like, okay, so I see where this is going. Kids are learning how to have this world of how-tos. How-tos include these same criteria. When they get to 2nd grade, the criteria grows. When they get to 4th grade, they have to bring in expert outside sources, not just in their head resources. So that's the work of this curriculum. So when you do that on-demand piece, it's going to feel like a failure, because you're going to be like, not one kid brought in an outside source from home to bolster their essay on why concussions are bad in football or whatever they're doing. This is what all your pieces will say. Cheer is fun. I like to cheer. When you cheer, you do flips. When you cheer, your mom has to get you a big bow. Cheering is good. Cheering is fun. My team is so good, my cheering is fun. When I cheer, it is good and fun to me. Right? Haley's like, I would love to receive that essay. Right? But as you teach this, you'll be like, listen, you can't just keep saying good and fun. You know, I don't know if you noticed that I did that. But that first batch of pieces that you get, even though you're like, I would love all 12 of those sentences, your kids will grow their writing over time and eventually be able to do a piece that says like, let me tell you about cheering. It is something I'm an expert at. The first thing to know is that you have to have special things. You have to have a bow and you have to have a team. The next thing you need to know about cheer is that you have to be on a good team. Teams get points. The teams with the most points win. Then you go to Pizza Hut. The third thing you need to know about cheer is that you have to be loud. Unless your coach is trying to teach you something new, then you have to listen. But when you're in a contest, it's important to be loud so you win and go to Pizza Hut. Do you like cheering? I do. Cheering is good to me. That's what you will transition your writers to. And all of a sudden, you'll take the seeds of what they're doing. And like, in many ways, those essays aren't that different, but you'll teach your kids how to take that path. And when you start to be like, oh yeah, you're doing how-to pieces, and you're doing how-to pieces, and the second grade is how-to pieces, we start to look at like the consistency of like, yes, because we're all using similar checklists and similar structure. This is the systemic lift of why you move this way. Not to be like, well, I don't do that because we always do Wax Museum in the spring, you know. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to have a whole cohort of kids who haven't done this kind of writing. If Wax Museum really matters that much to you, then you got to get the 8 Wax Museum 4th grade people together to talk about, okay, so what genre is this really supposed to be in? And apologies if you guys do Wax Museum and it's something that's super beloved, but it's like my classic example of, you know, you got to get the people together to talk about like, do we care about this Wax Museum project, or is it more for the parents? You know, is it more tradition? What genre are we going to align it to? How does it fit in with where we want kids to go as writers? So, I'm going to take a breath for a minute. Really quick, turn to a neighbor and tell them what the 3 parts of workshop are. Use your fingers to explain the 3 parts of workshop. We also now know that in our book, in our kit, the spiral-bound books are the units. And the units give us a bunch of mini lessons and a bunch of ideas for conferencing and a bunch of ideas for share time. So this is where Lucy is like saying to you, here's what I want you to do. The next thing I want you to pull out is the book called A Guide to the Common Core Writing Workshop. So you either have it for primary or intermediate. And I'm going to push us into a little bit of reading time. This slim book, this is the philosophy of the program. This is what I talked about at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock. Do not be fooled. This tiny book is butt kicking. This is where Lucy says, principals, your teacher should have an hour to teach writing every single solitary day. And if they don't, your job is to help make it happen for them. Right? This is where Lucy says, you teaching kids with IEPs who are second language learners? We developed this curriculum in New York City where there's 202 second languages. So if you think that kids that don't speak English as a first language can teach this way, please go to our Vimeo site and watch in classrooms where every kid is free and reduced lunch and a second language learner. So you can have high expectations for kids. All of that is in this little slim book. So what I'm going to ask us to do, right, so if you're sharing kits, oh, you don't have it at all?
No, we don't have that. No.
Everyone has it, so I just want to say that. Yeah, that's it. That's it, you're touching it. That's it.
I was looking for a comment.
Oh, a guide. It says a guide to the writing workshop. Yep. Mine says Common Core. Guess what? Because my book is 3 years old when 43 states had Common Core, and now it's just a guide to writing workshop when it's published because now we're down to only 20 states with Common Core. Like, funny how the world happens, right? But what's inside the book isn't the same. Or it is the same. Exactly the same, just a different cover. So I'm going to ask us to go to this reading. So everyone has this on their table, right? So this is the chapter right out of the book where Lucy says, I'm going to tell you why it's important for you to understand why we designed the curriculum this way. So I want you to go to this chapter that says necessity of writing instruction. And if you are the kind of person who appreciates a note catcher, in our handout on page 7, you've sort of got the list of those necessities of writing instruction, these bottom line conditions as Lucy calls them. And we're going to have about 12 minutes of professional reading time right now. And as you dig into this chapter, I'm going to ask you to do something that we ask informational text readers to do all the time. Read the bold statements. So skim through the whole thing, reading the bold, and then pick 3 or 4 of them. You don't have to read them in order. Okay? So she goes through, and if you really need to read the part about connecting reading and writing, or about assessment, or about strategies and conventions, or about goals, then that you should read. So there's big, bold statements that organize this chapter because it's a well-organized model of informational text. So go to the bold statements that resonate with you and the kind of learning you want to be doing, okay? So I'm going to hit the timer for 7 minutes, and we'll touch base to see how many you've had the chance to read. I am going to ask us to drop down and keep it at a level 0 because some of us have little kids at home, and this is the only we get quiet reading is right now, okay? So dig into this chapter. Where are you pushed? You know, what are you like, this is my house, or this is not my house, this is my room, this is not my room. We're going to give us 5 more minutes, then we're going to actually have a stand-up conversation with someone about our reaction to this text, and then we'll be, shortly after that. So I'm going to shut myself up. 5 more minutes of reading. Really make sure you're interacting with the text so that when we go back to share, you've got some places where you've marked up this reading. So just in our last few minutes before we wrap up, I am going to ask us just one more time to stand up, move away from our table, get in a group of 3, but no more than 3, and share what you read that sort of rocked you or reinforced your thinking. Where are you a little bit energized to be like, this is crazy, or this is amazing. So find that triad away from your table and have the chance to talk.
Relationships further on.
Yeah.
And we continually struggle with that, and where is that? We're struggling with the continuance of inventive spelling.
Yeah.
And where do we?
When does it transition? You already heard me say the they, the, look for the little word, sound it out, and how little that serves you well. And that conundrum of how do we transition from invented spelling to conventional spelling, that's one of the most important conversations we need to be having in a systemic, vertical conversation with each other, right?
It's 6:45.
Thank you, Sue. Rock and roll. Sue, I thought she had a very powerful thing to say. She's like, I care a lot about this spelling thing. You were awesome, Sue. Thumbs up. What else did people look at? What else? Sherry, what was your group talking about?
Well, we were just talking about, just like at the very end, it goes through all the information, the bottom line.
Yeah, those bottom line conditions. So if you didn't read all the way to the end, they're in the bold statements, yes, but they're also powered out on that very last page of the article. And it does give you pause to be like, This is my last swear at 6:45. Shit, have I been doing this or not doing all of these things? Like, I think I believe them all, but are they represented in my teaching? Sometimes, but sometimes not too. So knowing that there's that summary. Go ahead, Sherry.
Also, share is like, and I agree with her 100%, how do I let them choose what they're writing about when I've got this full, you have to write to this?
Yeah, and I'm going to push us hard. Did I put mine away? No, because that's one of the things that I was reading that made me want to go 5 more minutes. So this idea, if you are in the writing, or if you're in the article, that kids often, but not all the time, need to have choice and voice in their writing. And the work that we need to do, oh my gosh. For anyone who teaches 3rd and 4th grade, I'm totally stepping out of bounds here. The 4th grade unit on literary essay, I'm using it in a 9th grade classroom right now. In a 9th grade classroom in CMSD, because it is one of the most beautiful units. It's centered on the picture book, Those Shoes. I don't know if anyone knows it, by Mary Beth Boltz. And it teaches kids, you hook kids. You don't say, but if you still want to do a Minecraft story, that's okay with me, right? I know, you're like, no more Minecraft, right? Minecraft with an anti-sign through it. But what it does is it says, listen, we're all writing literary essays. And the structure in that 4th grade unit, if every kid in Ohio had that unit in 4th and again in 5th grade, all kids would meet expectations by the end of 6th grade for sure. You know, if they had that unit. It gives kids the opportunity not to say, but if you're not in the mood to write a literary essay, you can go off on a tangent because I just want us all writing. That's not the philosophy of the program. The philosophy of the program is, I'm going to bust us into this joyous mini lesson day after day about literary essays. And we're going to be so pumped up about it. And yes, I'm still going to have my Minecraft friend. And I'm still going to have my friend who's like, well, I only want to write about mature books. And you're trying to be like, you can't write about books with sex. And you can't write about Minecraft. But I'm going to figure out how to support you guys as individuals. So the genre, you're going to be bossy sometimes. But you're going to create a space for voice, and you're going to say, here's the thing, you guys, sometimes you don't get to choose the text that you write about. And just like that cooking show Chopped, where you don't get to always choose the ingredients you cook with, we're going to figure out how to make something good out of whatever's in our basket in our story that day. Because that's something that great writers need to know how to do. And then after that, we're writing fractured fairy tales. And guess what? There's space for Minecraft and fractured fairy tales, right? So when you have that purposefulness of like, they can't have all voice and choice, but I'm going to explain to them exactly where and why that lives and why it's such a great muscle to have. To be able to write from a piece of text that you didn't choose, and other times to be able to look at a blank piece of paper and be like, I can write any one of 16 things, I wonder what I'll do today. And we have to be able to do both of those things well. Okay. This chapter is the cornerstone of these essentials, and I'm not giving you a quiz on it. I'm giving you a quiz on mini lesson, work time, share time. But having the space to do this, I just came over and whispered to Sue, I'm like, I'm going to have to make a teeny tiny YouTube video, just giving a smidge of homework for Friday. So as you dig back into these materials, keep the stuff from today with your other stuff so that when you come on Friday, you have this article with you and you have the handout from today with you, because I'm going to reference it in this teeny tiny YouTube video I'm going to make for you guys. Okay, elbow bump your partner or pinky high five them and head back to your spot. Friends, does everyone feel like they know the structure of workshop? Yeah. And do you know which books are the units inside your kit? Yeah. So here's something we didn't get to tonight. I want you to go to page 9. And I want you to find number 3. on this list of getting, on number 2 and 3, on getting online. The units of study inside your kit, and even if you don't have a kit, you can share this, is a one-page document that says you need to register your unit online. And yeah, people have done that. Great. The other, Heidi has it. Heidi, can you just, for anyone who hasn't done it, and if you haven't done that yet, just really quick, there's a quick, you have to have Unit 1 in your lap when you do it, because you put in the code and then it will say, what's the first word on page 21, or what's the last word on page 17, right? So even though you guys are sharing units, everyone can be online. And, shh, if you're a specialist and you work in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, you should register for all 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And if you teach kinder, you should register for 1st, so you have it just in case. And if you teach 3rd, you should register 2nd and 4th, just in case, because they don't track all of that. And if you're like, I want that killer anchor chart that 3rd grade has, then you're not stuck being like, oh, I have to get someone's password. You just use the code and you need Spiral Bound Unit 1 with you. Number 3 reminds you that you can also sign up at readingandwritingproject.org. So you'll just go to readingandwritingproject.org, you'll click in the upper right hand corner, create an account, and then Lucy will start sending you love notes, which is so lovely. So you just go to Reading and Writing Project Home, and you'll click log in, and you'll create a new account, okay? And then inside this is tons of really great assessments, additional prompts. The 5th grade unit on opinion is on chocolate milk, pro, con, but on the online resources, or is zoos, pros and cons, water bottles, pros and cons as well. So you might be like, I don't have time to teach that, but I sure want all those articles so I can prep my kids for something else. Then you can find some of that stuff online, okay? So I'll mention that again quickly in the YouTube video, but I want you to see where this is, okay? So you're going to go to your handout, you're going to pull off the last page, and this is your exit ticket for today. Oh, if you wrote on it, here's one. Anybody else write on theirs? Here, do you want it? I have one extra. Oh, and, okay, hang on, I think, but I have one more from prepping my handouts. Voila.
Not going to critique your...
Not going to self-critique. So, as you fill that out, what went well tonight? How could it be even better? EBI, www, EBI. So we're looking for specific details. You might feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do differently in my own classroom. But some of you might be like, I'm going to start sharing differently tomorrow. I'm going to start choosing mentor text as my read aloud tomorrow. And I'm going to come around quickly, take your name tag off, fold it in half, sticky side in, and stick it in the bin so I can do the raffle tickets.